I would like to call the April 22nd, 2026 City Council regular meeting to order. Would everyone please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Carey,
Present.
Chilson,
Present.
Hutchings,
Here.
Nelson,
Present.
Parker,
She has an excused absence.
Wackler,
Present.
Kincaid.
Present.
You have a quorum, sir.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda and consent agenda. May I have a motion to approve the agenda and consent agenda? Ms. Hutchings.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda and consent agenda as presented.
Second. Thank you, Mr. Carey. Are there any changes to the agenda or consent agenda? Seeing none, will the clerk please read the consent agenda?
April 8th, 2026 City Council meeting minutes. Ordinance 2026-010, accepting grant funds from the Alaska Police Standards Council and increasing estimated revenues and appropriations by $15,500 in the general fund to attend the Alaska Law Enforcement Training Academy, sponsored by the city manager, public hearing on May 13th. Ordinance 2026-011, amending the official zoning map to rezone Tract 2 of the Mooring Estates Subdivision Part 19 from single-family to family residential to multifamily residential, sponsored by the city manager, public hearing on May 13th. Ordinance 2026-012, amending Soldotna Municipal Code Sections 3.08.010, tax levied, amount, and 3.06.070, fund accounting, sponsored by Councilmember Hutchings, public hearing on May 13th. Resolution 2026-014, naming one new street and renaming 3 existing or proposed rights-of-way for the Soldotna Junction Subdivision, Edition Number 24, sponsored by the city manager. Action Memorandum 2026-007, confirming a mayoral appointment to the Parks and Recs Advisory Board, sponsored by the mayor. That is your consent agenda.
Are there any public comments on any of the items just read by the clerk? Anyone here in the audience wishing to speak on any of those items? Please state your name and address for the record.
Tyson Cox, Soldotna, and I was going to speak to ordinance 2026-012, the one that's going to add possibly half a percent or half a to the sales tax. What I wanted to mention was not that I'm for or against it. It's more actually toward, because of what I do with apartments and rentals, is just to make aware that, and I've argued this actually at the assembly as well, is that we need to be very careful of that community. That community is the community that generally is lower income. There are less monies within that community altogether. And just as something to think about is my building just down the road here on Shady Lane is an 11-unit building. That building, my mill rate on that, when we were talking about who pays what, and that's a way for people to pay, because that becomes the argument. That's a way for people to pay on the mill rather. Since they're not paying a mill rate, that's a way for them to help pay that. One thing to think about is for me to pay our small amount of mill rate that we have here comes out to $228.95 on that building, and that's an 11-unit building. And then if you have $1,000 rent, which most of my tenants do, they actually pay $210 in. If we add this to that, it would be a total of $210 a year on their tax, each person. And so that actually becomes of that amount that is 1.75% to my 5,000th of a percent, because I'm only paying that 0.5 of a mil. So I don't think it's actually a fair trade. And I've been a proponent of this for a long time, and I do want it to be very clear that it's not because I make any money on it. Those are pass through. That has nothing to do with what I collect for rents. That is the pass through that they would pay regardless of whether or not I'm making any money on rents or not. And so just something to think about. I would definitely, I know it's not part of this, but I would be a proponent altogether of not having renters taxed, but that's me. But what I am suggesting is if there's any way to exempt them from this portion of the tax, or maybe write it in so it just stays at the 3% forever, and that they're not taxed in an exorbitant amount, because that can go up as taxes go up. So, because it's not just the Soldotna tax. People in the city of Soldotna and the city of Kenai right now are paying $30 of their rent monies to that tax every month. But anyways, just a comment mostly. I don't see it changing the meat of what you guys are wanting to do. I just think it could be something considered, and I wanted to bring it up at introduction in case somebody had time to make that change or decided it was something that interests them. Thank you.
Any questions from the council? Thank you, Mr. Cox.
You're welcome.
We'll take a look at Zoom, and I see no hands raised there. Having no one else wishing to speak, the approval of the agenda and consent agenda is back before the council. Are there any objections to approving the agenda and consent agenda? Seeing and hearing none, the agenda and consent agenda are approved by unanimous consent. Next item on the agenda is public comments and presentations. Are there any members from the public who would like to speak on any item not appearing on the agenda? Anyone here in the audience? Seeing none, we'll take a look at Zoom, and I see no hands raised there. Moving on to the next agenda item is Assembly and Legislative Reports. And there are no representatives from the borough here or from the state. And I see none on the Zoom. Moving on to the next item on the agenda is public hearings, and we have none this evening. Unfinished business. We do have 2 items under unfinished business, and the first one being Ordinance 2025-039, amending the Soldotna Municipal Code, Section 17.10.385, to establish a uniform administrative permit requirement for all short-term rental units, and amending Section 17.10.130, 17.10.260, 17.10.315, and 17.10.400 for consistency, introduced by Councilmember Chilson. There is a motion to enact on the floor from the January 14th, 2026 meeting, and so we will have a report from Councilmember Chilson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Continuing this from our January 14th meeting, I don't really have any additional information to add as far as the intent of this ordinance goes, but what I would say is, based on that hearing that we held on January 14th, I think we received some pretty helpful feedback from the community as far as ways to potentially improve this. So taking that in mind, we postponed it and then went back to the drawing board with this and really worked with administration and some community stakeholders that are really knowledgeable in this area, and put together a substitute ordinance, which is included in tonight's agenda. And I will be making a motion when we bring this back to the council to amend this through substitution. And if you would like, I could speak to what that substitute ordinance entails at this point, or I can speak to that later when I make the motion to amend through substitution.
When you make the motion.
Okay, I will do that then.
Are there any members of the public who wish to speak on this item? And that is Ordinance 2025-039.
Hello, Tyson Cox, Soldotna. First, I just wanted to thank Ms. Mitchell and Mr. Chilson for listening to some of the concerns that I had, not just myself, but I have a group that I participate with that is into residential rentals and in Airbnbs and those kinds of things. And I was just going to highlight a few of the things that we had discussed and kind of what came about of it. One is that the group especially had an issue, which I did as well, with the fee, having a fee on the application. I think that's going to be addressed, and I appreciate that. The density limits, I think you guys are probably going to get something that changed it a little bit. The meat of that is you can utilize your property up to a triplex where you'd only get to use 2 out of the 3, and then a fourplex would be half, so 2 out of the 4. I'm personally okay with it. It doesn't bother my business plan or how I run things. A couple people in our group still had a little bit of heartburn over that. They didn't like that it was being controlled at all, which I definitely understand. But I do think it was probably a fair compromise to come to. And so I think it is a comfortable level that I came to in some of the discussions that we had. And then the last one was the point of contact, which changed a little bit from a local to just a primary point of contact. Because some of the discussions that in our group we even had is really, number one, how would you know where someone was at? And number two is like I've set up my business where I could take care of something like that, whether I'm here or not. Just as long as I'm notified, I can deal with any kind of those issues. Anyways, the reason I bring all of those up is those were some of our points of contention. I think that these guys worked really hard, not just on those, but on modifying things that they felt would be better for this. And so personally, I'm just up here to say that I am in very much support of this. I hope going forward that it makes it easier for those doing Airbnbs and things to be able to follow the rules that are in place. Not just with what's in this, but also with actually collecting the bed tax and those things. So anyways, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cox. Any questions or comments from the council? Seeing none, thank you again.
Thanks.
Seeing no one else here in the chambers wishing to speak on this item, we'll take a look at Zoom, and there are no hands raised there. Are there, having no one wishing to speak, the item is back before the council. Mr. Chilson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would move to amend through substitution ordinance 2025-039 with the included substitute ordinance.
May I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Are there any council comments? And we'll just ask you to make a report, Mr. Chilson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So as Mr. Cox had mentioned, there are definitely some issues that were identified with this and ways we could improve it. So having that information in hand, we went back to the drawing board with really two primary goals on this. How can we simplify it and how can we ease the administrative burden for short-term rental operators? And coming together quite a few different ideas that have been collected into the substitute ordinance. We have a number of changes. Some of them have been mentioned. I'll just kind of speak to the key points that this substitute ordinance entails. Number one, we've loosened back the requirement for we have reduced the requirement that had previously established a need for a 24/7 local contact. Now it's just a primary contact and have omitted the word local to give more flexibility to managers of the properties. Additionally, we removed the language that was duplicative on parking and now just reference existing code. Prior to this, there was a limit of 5 rooms, and now there's just a simple 50% cap on buildings with 4 or more units, and then those with 5 or more rooms are simply required to adhere to building code. As far as density limits for other smaller buildings go, we've actually increased those density limits so that for duplexes, triplexes, and single-family homes with ADUs, that limit is now increased to 2 units can be used for rental purposes. We've included language that requires tax compliance, both at the borough level and at the city level with our short-term or lodging tax. We've also, let's see here. A couple other clarifications I wanted to speak to with this. There aren't necessarily code changes in this, but right now we have a registration process for collecting lodging taxes. We didn't want to subject people to having to deal with multiple processes they had to deal with, one for the permit and then one for the certificate to collect tax. So this isn't something that's really addressed in the code, but in working with staff, I did want to share that they are going to be overhauling the registration system into one unified process to where when operators go in to do their registration, whether it be for a permit or a certificate to collect tax, they'll be able to do both of them in one process and really simplify that. And then in addition to that, you'll also see on the agenda, there's resolution 2026-013, which through that resolution, I'm proposing setting the fee for permitting for short-term rental operations to free. I'd be happy to stand for any questions on this. I know there's a lot to unpack with this, and it's been a work in progress. I do want to take a moment to voice my appreciation to Linda Mitchell for bearing with me through this for months. I know I've work with you back and forth quite a bit on this. And also Tyson, you've had really informative insight on this, and I really appreciate your help as well. So I'm proud of what we've been able to put together, and I do think it represents a good compromise in accomplishing the goals that I defined at the January hearing for this ordinance.
Any other comments on the substitute? I'll call for the vote on the substitute.
Chilson,
Yes.
Hutchings,
Yes.
Carrie,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Wackler,
Yes.
Kincaid.
Yes.
You have 5 yes votes.
Okay, substitute ordinance 2025-039 has been adopted. Now, are there any council comments on the final approval? I didn't quite hear that, Ms. Wackler. Could you repeat that?
Libraries have to do.
That, any other council comments? All right, before us, we have substitute ordinance 2025-039, and we'll call for the vote.
Carrie,
Yes.
Wackler,
Yes.
Chilson,
Yes.
Hutchings,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Kincaid.
Yes.
You have 5 yes votes.
Thank you. Substitute ordinance 2025-039 passes on a 5-0 vote. Moving on to the next agenda item is new business, and that would be resolution 2026-013, amending the economic development and planning section of the city of Soldotna fee schedule to establish a $0 fee for short-term rental permits, introduced by Councilmember Chilson. May I have a motion to adopt?
Mr. Mayor, I'd move to adopt resolution 2026-013.
May I have a second, please? Thank you, Mr. Carey. And a report from Councilmember Chilson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As previously discussed at the hearing just a couple moments ago for the for ordinance number 2025-035, this fee schedule would be amended to reduce the existing fee down to a level of free for additional short-term permits moving forward.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak on this item? Anyone here in the audience wishing to speak on this item, which is resolution 2026-013? Seeing no one, we'll take a look at Zoom, and there are no hands raised there. Having no one who wishes to speak, the item is back before the council. Are there any council comments? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote.
Chilson,
Yes.
Wackler,
Yes.
Carrie,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Hutchings,
Yes.
Kincaid.
Yes.
You have 5 yes votes.
Resolution 2026-013 passes on a 5-0 vote. Moving on to the next item on the agenda is mayor and council reports. I have a couple of things. Ms. Wackler has volunteered to sit on the Chamber of Commerce as our liaison. That will be officially before you at our next council meeting by memo, action memo.
Sorry, I missed that. Which council member?
Wackler.
Oh, thank you.
And I would appreciate it if you two might be able to get together and you can kind of explain what's going on. Oh, next item is, I had mentioned, I think at the last meeting, that I would not be here for the May 13th meeting, and I did not read my calendar properly. I will be here. And as a reminder on that, that will be the night we do evaluations of the city manager and the city clerk. So if you haven't done your evaluations, please do so. Thank you. And get those copies to Vice Mayor Parker. Next item, I have a couple of proclamations I will quickly read here. First one, whereas the United States Armed Forces are a vital force in defending our nation and upholding our values both at home and abroad, and whereas the men and women of our military, along with their families, make significant sacrifices for our freedom and security, and whereas their courage, dedication, and commitment to duty are an inspiration to us all, and whereas it is fitting that we recognize and express our deep appreciation for the service and sacrifices of the United States Armed Forces, and whereas Armed Forces Day, observed annually on the third Saturday of May, provides an opportunity to honor those who serve and to show our support for them. Whereas National Military Appreciation Month, observed throughout May, provides an opportunity for all citizens to express their gratitude and support for the military community. Now therefore, I, Paul Whitney, Mayor of the City of Soldotna, do hereby proclaim May 16th, 2026 in the City of Soldotna as Armed Forces Day. And be it further proclaimed, I hereby proclaim May 2026 in the City of Soldotna as Military Appreciation Month, dated this 22nd day of April 2026. The next proclamation I have here is, whereas the annual sale of buddy poppies by the Veterans of Foreign Wars, VFW, of the United States has been officially recognized and endorsed by government leaders since 1922. And whereas VFW buddy poppies are assembled by disabled veterans, and the proceeds of this worthy fundraising campaign are used exclusively for the benefit of disabled and needy veterans. And whereas the basic purpose of the annual sale of buddy poppies by the Veterans of Foreign Wars is elegantly reflected in the desire to honor the dead by helping the living. Now therefore, I, Paul Whitney, Mayor of the City of Soldotna, Alaska, do hereby urge the citizens of this community to recognize the merits of this cause by contributing generously to its support through the purchase of buddy poppies, and set aside the month of May 2026 for the distribution of these symbols of appreciation for the sacrifices of our honored dead during Buddy Poppy Month. I urge all patriotic citizens to wear a buddy poppy as evidence of our gratitude to the men and women of this country who have risked their lives in defense of the freedoms which we continue to enjoy as American citizens. Moving on. Next item on the agenda is council reports on boards and commissions, and we have none this evening. And 10th item on the agenda is report from the city manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This evening, I've asked Director Todd to provide an update regarding the field house.
Hello. Just an update on the current events. We've sort of bypassed our sports season and we're moving into big event season. So we've recently had our first couple big events in the building. One of them was the wrestling tournament last weekend. We had 800 wrestlers on 10 mats with probably 3,000 people coming through the building over the course of 2 days. It's probably one of the biggest, not the biggest tournaments, but the biggest spaces for a tournament where normally they can only get 6 to 8 mats in one area. When they're at Skyview, some are in the gym, some are upstairs, some are in the lobby. And so families and members of the community are kind of running around circles trying to find where their kids are supposed to be at. So it's very cool to have them all in one space. Since I've been here for 11 years, we've been dreaming of hosting a wrestling tournament at the ice arena. Due to Brown Bear's ice schedule, it's not been possible. So we're very excited to host them. Like all new events, we learned some things, and the event people also learned some things. There was some concern about the track and some not damage, but use of the track for spectators. We designed that facility for using the track area for spectating. The turf that we purchased back in the day was specifically designed for running, walking, and pedestrians walking on it. We knew that there was going to be some usual, dirt, snow, and we knew that was going to be a space that we're going to have to clean. When you're camped out for a wrestling tournament for 12 hours and you have multiple siblings running around, things happen, and there was some extra use of that area that we weren't able to fully clean up until about Tuesday afternoon. But as of Tuesday after the event, the track was cleaned and looked pretty good. There's equipment that we will be purchasing. We've actually tried 3 different cleaning apparatuses for the track material, but because it's a rubberized surface, it's kind of been a learning challenge on what's actually going to work. We didn't want to waste thousands of dollars on a piece of equipment that wasn't going to meet our needs. So we're pretty confident that we have what it will take. We did clean it with just a mop and a brush and some sweat equity, which wasn't the most efficient use of time and energy, but it actually did a really great job. So, and yeah, just to kind of highlight, I don't know, like there was a lot of emails that went around last week and question marks, and so I figured I'd just come and chat with you guys, answer any questions if you had any. There's talk about whether we could close the track for events. That's not my recommendation. I think we can implement a few different policy changes to reduce the wear and tear on that space. But again, the field house was built to be used. We want to use it. I always think about like, you know, the furniture in your living room that got covered with vinyl and nobody was allowed to sit on it. That's not what we're doing. We want to get in there and play. And obviously we're learning on how to best take care of it because we do want it to last 40 years or more, like the sports center or the ice rink. There's also a little bit of just normal users. It's not just events. It's normal people going up there. We're averaging, I think, 130 seniors walking up there every day for free, and that doesn't count whoever's using it in the afternoon. It's a very well used space, and so we're also learning how to take care of the snow and ice melt that comes up. We don't have a grand entranceway where people can take off all their boots and leave them on the carpet. So there is some of that that's going upstairs, and so we're coming up with a few different strategies to address that. If you've been up there this winter, you realize that we put down some more carpet, like, you know, weather mats to kind of soak up some of that snow and ice melt, so that way it's not touching the track. There was question marks on whether we charge cleaning fees for events. We don't necessarily charge a cleaning fee, but it is in the contract if it's excessive wear and tear and we need to pay to fix something or clean something, that's in the contract and that they would be required to take care of that fee. Similar to like at Soldotna Creek Park on a Wednesday, you know, if you have a food truck that rips through the lawn and I have to go back and replant grass, you know, that's part of the cost, or that we would pass on to the users. And then there was just a lot of questions about enforcement. We did have 2 staff on duty at all times during the event. That's normal. Home shows, sports and rec shows, safari club, any sort of event, we have at least 2 staff on duty, checking bathrooms and making sure people are following the rules. The user group also had volunteers that was upstairs, and you guys know Parks and Rec. You've been to a Wednesday, you've been to anywhere in July, you've been to a Brown game. 99% of the people are amazing. A couple people leave a mess and we clean up and move on. And that's kind of what happened last weekend. This weekend is home show. There's not going to be any events upstairs. Next weekend is sports and rec. They will have vendors upstairs. So we're actually going to bring some of our carpet upstairs and lay that on the track to help reduce the wear and tear of that facility. And then we'll look at some other products later on if that works or doesn't work. So really, rather than email everybody back and forth, I just thought I'd come and chat with you guys and answer any questions if you had any.
Go ahead.
Some things that Joel and I spoke about yesterday is right now there's a fee in the fee schedule, perhaps amending that for these bigger events so that because there is a greater cost to the staffing and so on and so forth. For that additional staffing. Also, there was one more that we talked about. Anyway, we talked about some ideas for, you know, different events. Right now, we kind of have a boilerplate contract and giving Parks and Rec the ability to change the contract as needed. For instance, this is a different event. We, you know, modify that contract to address they have to clean, they have to do this, they have to do that. And so that each event is very different from the other, so that way they can modify to the event. So moving forward. And like Joel said, we're in our first year, we're learning a lot. And as you know, rules change. It's every time there's something that comes up, change happens, rules change, as you know, code changes. when things come up. And so that's what we're addressing. I do agree with Joel that 99% were wonderful. It's that 1% that left a mark.
Any, Mr. Chilson?
You mentioned that current contract language already requires that they compensate for any damages or cleaning costs that are incurred. Are we actually holding them accountable for that? Like with this last event, are we going to make them pay for the staff time where you had to divert staff from other city projects and additional duties to do this when they shouldn't have had to do that in the first place?
I mean, I think like after a Brown game, we have 3 staff that stay until 2 a.m. cleaning up the bleachers. So it's the cost of having 3,000 people come into our community for an event. I don't feel like it would be necessary for this particular event, but I think we can make some changes for future events.
So kind of building on that, I think our manager spoke to that a little bit about amending the fee schedule to actually make it properly reflect the cost of staff time. And I would be very supportive of that, of actually making the fees to use the facility cover the cost of the staff to support it. And then my follow-up question would be, do we currently have a deposit system for full facility rentals? And if not, would we be open to maybe establishing one?
Yeah, our current practice is it's not a cleaning deposit, but it's we require 30% of an event fee to book the event, and then we require the full balance prior to the event. And then there's language for if you break it, you have to help fix it. And it's worked for 40-something years, but we could definitely look into other strategies. Like what Jeanette was talking about with the different types of events in our park. If you rent a pavilion, it's $30-something because I know that that's a barbecue of 10 people. If you have, an event with 2,000 people, that price scales up, and it's $1,000 or whatever the rental is right now. And so we could do something similar with our event. Safari Club was last weekend. They had 500 people in there. That's a great event, super easy. The fee was great. But if we're doing a Whalers or a home show or a sports and rec show where we're having 3,000, 5,000 community members come through, it's harder to police all of the public. It's a little easier to police a standalone user group like Safari Club.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else from the council? Go ahead, Ms.
I do want to add that the event organizer did contact Joel afterwards, and they've been in contact and, apologized for what happened, and they will work with the city however we want them to work with us. So that was, they're owning everything, so that's nice.
Mr. Nelson?
Thank you, and I appreciate the response on what I had asked about the closing of the track, and I can see both ways to that. I think there's definitely somewhere that's a good thing to preserve the building, but obviously there isn't a whole lot of spectator space in the field house, and I certainly understand that. I guess just to echo what Mr. Chilson said, and this is my own opinion, but I don't necessarily think our user fees, and I don't think any of them are designed to recoup full costs of things. I think they're meant to offset and do some of that. And maybe one thing that I would put out of this is for big events like that, maybe there's a way to look at the fees for sure, but also maybe say, if you are going to have that many people, you need to have some volunteers to help our city staff do that. And I know many of these groups, I'm sure if we would have asked that, the user group would have been perfectly happy to help that. So that might be something to help build a partnership. So just a thought for consideration.
Yeah, and to clarify, they did have lots of volunteers. I think they had at least 30 at any given moment. And the Sports and Rec Show, who's the next event that will be upstairs, is paying people to stand at both stairwells and reinforce the policy. So there's already, new changes in place to kind of help that out.
Anyone else from the council? Ms. Wackler?
The only other comment that wasn't addressed that I also agree is probably a little bit out of the bounds of something we can really reasonably address is the access to Wi-Fi was talked about
Mhm.
multiple times. Now I think in a room, given that we have 3,000 people, access to high-speed internet in a reliable way for one event may not be something that we can accomplish, but is there any discussion about that?
Yep. Yeah, immediately. Actually, even during the event. Friday, our internet server crashed during their event, and we were able to get our IT department to help us get that back up and running. So that solved one of the problems. It is a big steel building. Some cell phones don't work in there at all. And so we're already sourcing cell phone boosters that can go into the field house to help allow the general public to use their cell phones in there. And then with the Wi-Fi, I think we've already, or we're about ready to up the Wi-Fi speed and amount to accommodate these events. And we're looking at, even according to the IT world, there's what we have, and then there's like this fancy other thing that we might need to go to. I don't really understand it, but we're looking into it.
Anything else from the council? Would that Wi-Fi crash possibly because there was too many users trying to get on at the same time?
Nope, we do, not to get into the weeds, but the router that we use, they brought their own equipment. It just happened to be the same type of router. They talked to each other. One kicked one off. Ours was the one that got kicked off. Bryce was able to get in remotely, fix it, and within like 20, 30 minutes, we were able to get back online. So that shouldn't be a problem anymore. And then we do have event Wi-Fi for a user group, and then we have free public Wi-Fi for the general public. And right now, the strategy is the more people you get in there, the public will shrink. They'll have slower access, where the event should still be able to access the speeds and qualities that they would need.
Anything else? Seeing none, we'll go back to the city manager's report.
I don't have anything further unless you have any questions.
Any questions for the city manager? Okay, moving on to the next is public comments. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak on any item? Seeing none here in the audience, we'll take a look at Zoom, and I see no hands raised there. Next one, council comments, and we'll start with Mr. Chilson.
No comments tonight.
Mr. Nelson,
No comments from me either, thanks.
Mr. Carey,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd ask from the manager if she could provide data on how much money is raised by sales tax on renters in the city. This is a question, makes
Sure.
sense. Thank you.
I will do so. Some of it, I will do my best.
Go
Some
ahead,
of the
couple.
borough, yeah, sometimes the borough will not disclose that information, but I will work on that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ms. Wackler.
Being that it's a quicker meeting, I think I'll use this time really briefly to give my report. You guys were generous to donate through the mini grant program $1,000 to the Peninsula Period Network. And I am proud to let you guys know that we had 2 pallets of period supplies delivered to Soldotna a couple weeks ago through generous help with a couple of local businesses and volunteers. We had all of those picked up and put into my garage. So I have over 32,000 period products right now in my garage. And your donation of $1,000 accounts for 5,700 period products that are going over to So High this week, hopefully by tomorrow. So that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hutchings.
Well, I would like to say thank you to everybody that has helped with contributing to the Kenai Peninsula Foundation. Chera and I have been very busy. We did a lot of granting in the last week, and we were able to give out $45,000 in grants. So it speaks well for our community, for all the people that participate. And then the other thing I've been so excited to work on is for Alaska Community Foundation. We have been doing scholarships, and the Denali Scholarship Program gave out $120,000 worth of scholarships, and some of the children were from our area. We did the Ron and Terry Davis Scholarship, which gave 6 children in the area career and technical scholarships to the tune of $4,000 each. And then there have been some smaller ones through Ninilchik, and there's one from Kenai, and I'm working on Seward right now. So it's really exciting to see the people that contribute to the foundation so that these children will have an education. So thank you for that. And Pappy's is opening on Friday, so everybody enjoy yourself. I'm so looking forward to good Mexican food. Good night.
I do have a question for you, Ms. Hutchings. On the scholarships, are there any vocational scholarships still available?
When we did the Denali Scholarship, we did half for regular bachelor degrees, and the other half were for career and technical. The Ron and Terry Davis was all career and technical, which is vocational.
Are they available? Are they still available? I just,
No,
the reason
they-
I'm asking is I just received a request for some help on a vocational scholarship, and
Those grants closed, I want to say the 30th of March, and I've been just
Okay.
doing the reviews. I've probably done 70 reviews for scholarships, but no, that is already closed. It happened, most of them came through the fact that we did the scholarship fair out at the sports center. And they had, not just from here, but statewide, they had 1,200 scholarship applications. So it was pretty remarkable.
we'll save the best for last. Ms. Kincaid.
Hi. So this week we have something pretty exciting. Our drama class has been preparing a Frozen Junior musical for this week. That's happening Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, each having showings at 7, and then Saturday also a matinee at 2. So one thing that's special about this class that we've had is that we have an actual class time to have it instead of having it after school. So they can practice at the end of the day, 7th hour, every day, and are able to work on props and be able to work on that without taking time from their day, so people can still do sports and do other extracurricular activities while also participating in drama, which I think is pretty sweet. As far as sports go for us, we have a special opportunity for our track team. The varsity is out in Boise right now. They have a track meet this Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, which is also pretty cool. They're all very excited about it. And then our junior varsity is doing a track meet here in Kenai this Saturday. For soccer, the girls and guys are both at a soccer fest in the valley. And baseball is at their Buddy Dale tournament in Wasilla. And for softball, we have our first games on Monday at Kenai, so hopefully it's not too windy and not too mushy. I also wanted to say Happy Earth Day. I'm so thankful to live here. I got to drive up to Anchorage and back today, and it was just so wonderful to see all the pretty views and live here in such a wonderfully maintained town. And I'm just so thankful to have such great views and such great parks and just everything to help us enjoy our earth. So thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to the next agenda item is executive session. We have no need for one this evening. Next one is pending legislation, and there are none. And next meeting announcements, May 6, 2026, Planning and Zoning Commission meeting at 5:30 p.m. and May 13th, 2026, City Council meeting at 6 p.m. Seeing and having nothing further on our agenda, we are adjourned.